Hi, welcome to this session on must-do sets for CAT LRDI preparation. Whether you are just starting off or planning to revise for your upcoming CAT examination, these are sets which you should not be missing. In today's session, we'll be looking at calculation-based DI, specifically table-based DI problems. Now, if you look at the past CAT papers, every single slot, at least one, maybe even two questions are there on calculation-based DI. And a lot of these calculation-based DI questions involve use of tables, manipulating a table, and so on. Now, what are the key types of skills which you need to do in order to master tables and calculation-based DI? First one is missing values. Usually you'll have a table with only partially filled value. You'll have to fill up the missing value based on some information which is given or some additional problem or additional information which is given in each question. A second type of question is linking of multiple tables. So you have data which is split across multiple tables and you need to link these tables in order to find the information. And a third type of problem is creating a column or a new row. This is almost like a calculated column or a calculated row based on the information which is given already in the given table. Let's get on with these sets. If you are running short of time, obviously you can skip to the relevant sets. Each of the videos which you'll be releasing will have links available in the description where if you click on it, you can skip to the relevant set.
A company administers a written test comprising of 3 sections after having 20 marks each. So each of them is out of 20. You have some partial scores which are given to you. There's a way of calculating scores. Then there's some data given to you. And if you look at the questions, which of them must be true, must be false, if and if. So the questions itself tell you that it may not be always possible to get all the information straight away. So let's see what we can get out of this. Okay. So let's just summarize the data. You have company administers the written test consists of 3 sections of 20 marks each. So all of them are out of 20. Okay. DI, written English and general awareness for recruitment. A composite score of candidates out of 80. But 20, 20, 20 should be 60. How is it 80? Because you have to double the marks in DI. Okay. And then add it to the sum of the marks in the other 2 sections. So DI is doubled. DI is going to be doubled. Okay. Candidate who scores less than 70% in 2 or more sections is disqualified. So if you scored less than 70%, which means 14 or lesser, less than 14 in 2 sections, you are disqualified. So for example, Chetna will be disqualified. Similarly, Falak will be disqualified. Irrespective of what her score is, she is going to be disqualified. From among the rest, if the 4 with the highest composite scores are recruited, if 4 or less candidates qualify, all those who qualify are recruited. And then you have some information. Okay, so let's just summarize this data. I have just written down this data. Okay, now what else is given to us? No 2 candidates had the same composite scores. Okay, we'll use it later. Ajay had the unique highest score in WE. So whatever he scores, that is unique. Nobody else scores that marks. So there's an 18. He might score a 19 or a 20. We'll look at that later. Among the 4 recruited, Geeta had the lowest composite score. So we know Geeta was recruited. Okay. Indu was also recruited. Okay. Indu and Jatin. Okay. You have Danish, Harini and Indu had scored the same marks in GA. These 3 had the same marks. Okay, we don't know about that. We'll come to that later. Okay, 6th statement says Indu and Jatin both scored 100% in exactly 1 section, and Jatin's score was 10 more than Indu's score. Okay, now Jatin will score 100% in one section, so he will score 20 here. Now let's look at his composite scores. Composite scores will be 40 plus 30, 70. So Indu's score should be 60. Right, Indu is selected, Jatin will also be selected because both of them are here. Now, Indu has to score 60. Now, if Indu also scores 20 here, that will be 40 plus 8, 48. So this score should be 12. But if you score 12 here, now by this criteria, if you score less than 70% in one, you are disqualified. She will be disqualified. So she cannot score her 20 here. She will have to score her 20 here. So let's just, right. So this will be 20. This is 28. So balance should be 32. So which means she should score 16. Right. We can also score Falak and Esther's. We can also score Falak and Esther's marks, and also calculate Chetna's marks. Falak will be 30 plus 17, so this is 47. Esther will be 24 plus 16, 40 plus 8, 58. And Chetna will be 38 plus 12, 50 plus 4, 54. Okay. Now we know Chetna is rejected. We know Falak is rejected because of the scores. We don't know whether Esther is selected or not. Okay, we know Geeta is selected. Okay, now Geeta will score 28 plus 6, 34 plus 20, 54. Maximum score of Geeta can be 54. But Esther has scored 58, so Esther will also be selected. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we know Esther is selected. Now, we also know Danish, Harini and Indu scored the same marks in GA. Okay, so this should be 20, this should be 20. Now we can score Danish as well. Now because Esther is selected, all the other 4 have to be rejected. Okay. Let's look at this. Danish. Danish's score will be 35 plus 16, 51. 35 plus 16, 51. Which means because Geeta is selected, Geeta has to score more than 51. Right? She cannot score 54. Okay, what her score can be? This is 28 plus 6, 34. If she scores a 20, she can score a 54. But Chetna already has a 50, so she cannot score 20. If she scores a 19, she will get 53. Right? If she scores an 18, she'll get 52. Right? So it has to be 18 or 19 here. It has to be 18 or 19 here. Let's look at Harini. Harini is 10 plus 20, 30. So she is gone already. Okay, let's look at Ajay. Ajay will score either a 19. If she scores 18, he can score a 19 or a 20. So let's look at what Ajay's score can be. 16 plus 16, 32. 32 plus 19 will be either 51 or 52. Right? So this is what we have as of now. Right? Okay. Now Geeta has to be selected, whereas Ajay will not be selected. Now Ajay is going to score either 18 or a 19 here. Sorry, Ajay is going to score either a 19 or a 20 here. Right? Ajay will satisfy this criteria. So the only reason Ajay is not selected is because Ajay has scored lesser than Geeta, which means Geeta has to score more than Ajay. Now let's see what Ajay's scores can be. This is 16 plus 16, 32. 32 plus 19 will be 51. But 51 is already with Danish. No two candidates have the same composite score, so Ajay cannot score 51. So Ajay will be scoring 20 here. So overall of 52, which means Geeta's overall should be 53, which means Geeta will score 19 here. Right? So we have this much information. All we have to do is go to the questions now, because we cannot do much about these. Let's go to the questions. Which of the following must be true? Which of the following must be true? Jatin's composite score was more than that of Danish. Jatin actually has the highest, so first statement is true. So this is out, this is out. Let's look at the second one. Indu scored less than Chetna and DI. Indu scored less than Chetna and DI. This is also true. So both 1 and 2 are true. Option 2. Which of the following must be false? Bala's composite score was less than Esther. It is possible that he scores less than Esther. Right now he has got 20. Even if he scores 20 here, he can go to 60, right? But he will be disqualified, right? Because he has 2 parts. So he can have more, he can have less. So first may be true, may be false. Second, Bala scored the same as Jatin in DI. Now if Bala scores 20 here, his total score will be 60, right? But 60 is a score of Indu, which is not possible. So this is not possible. So second is definitely incorrect. Okay, let's go to the next one. If all the candidates except Ajay and Danish scored different marks in DI, and Bala's composite score was less than Chetana's. So Bala has to score less than 54. What can be the maximum marks that Bala could have scored in DI? Okay, now he already has 20 marks here. He has to score less than 34 in composite score, which means his DI score has to be less than 17. Right? Can he score a 16? He cannot score a 16 because Indu has a 16. Can he score a 15? No, because Palak has a 15. He cannot score a 14. His highest score can be 13. Right. This will be the answer. And the last one, if all the candidates scored different marks in WE, then what is the maximum marks that Harini could have scored in WE? Okay, 20 is not possible, 19 is not possible, 18 is not possible. Can she score a 17? If she gets a 17, this will be 10 plus 20, 30 plus 17 is 47. She already has a 47, so 17 is not possible. 16, can she score a 16? Can she score a 16? Not possible because Jatin has scored a 16. She cannot score a 15 because Danish has scored a 15. Can she score a 14? Yes, she can. 30 plus 14 is 44. So 14 is the maximum Harini can score. It's not difficult, but you need to be extremely careful while you're filling up this table. That's all you need to do. Okay? Little bit of care for about 4 to 5 minutes. You can fill up the table and then go to the questions and solve. Right? Moderate level question should have been attempted probably in the second round. That completes this particular set.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notifications button so that you are notified when we are releasing our next set of videos. Please do like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you want to connect with us, you can connect with us through WhatsApp and Telegram as well. All the relevant links are available in the description of this particular video. Now, this is a caselet and it has a lot of additional questions which are there. In fact, for questions 4 and 5, you have additional data which is there. So let's look at what the caselet actually says, understand the basic mechanics of it, and then we will go ahead and solve the questions one by one. Abdul, Bikram and Chetan are 3 professional traders who trade in shares of a company XYZ. Abdul follows a strategy of buying at the opening at 10 o'clock and selling the whole lot at the close at 3 p.m. So Abdul is there. You have Bikram, ABC. Okay. Right. So he buys everything at 10. So at 10 a.m. he buys. And at 3 p.m. he sells. Pretty simple life. Right. Bikram follows a strategy of buying at hourly intervals at 10, 11, 12, 1 and 2 and selling the whole at the close of the day. So Bikram is a more staggered approach. So Bikram buys at 10, then again at 11, then at 12, then at 1 p.m., 2 p.m. and sells everything at 3 p.m. So if he buys S number of shares here, S number of shares here, S number of shares here, S number of S shares here, S number of shares here, he will sell 5S here. Chetan follows a similar pattern as Bikram, but his strategy is somewhat different. Chetan's total investment is divided equally among his purchases. The profit and loss made by each investor is the difference in the sales value. Okay, so Chetan basically spends the equal amount. So he will invest A rupees in shares, then A rupees again, then A rupees here again, A rupees here again, A rupees here again. So obviously he's going to get different number of shares. Unlike Bikram, he's going to get different number of shares, but the amount invested is going to be the same. So all those shares are sold at C. So everyone sells off everything at 3 o'clock. That is what is given to us. Profit and loss is made by the difference between the sale value at the close of the day. Return for each investor is defined as a ratio of profit and loss to the amount expressed in the percentage. Okay, so standard definition of profit and loss. Let's see what can be the trends among these 3 people. So I've written this down neatly. So Abdul basically buys at 10, sells everything at 3 p.m. Bikram buys equal number of shares and sells. Chetan invests equal amount of money and sells everything at 3. Okay, now let's see what happens. If the market keeps on rising through the day, right? If the market keeps on rising through the day, right? Now, Abdul has got for the lowest amount, right? He is going to make a huge amount of profit. Bikram is going to make a lesser amount of profit. Why? Because Bikram's cost price keeps on increasing through the day, right? This is his average cost price. So Bikram's cost price will be somewhere here, right? And same with Chetan. Chetan also, his cost price will also keep on increasing. So if it is a rising market, you know, Abdul will definitely make money more than Bikram and Chetan. Similarly, if it's a falling market, again, Abdul will make money, lose more money compared to Bikram and Chetan. Why? Because Bikram and Chetan's cost price will now be down, because their cost price will be weighted average of these cost prices, right? So Bikram and Chetan will make a lesser loss, whereas Abdul will make a bigger loss. That is if the market keeps on rising or if the market keeps on falling. So Abdul gets the maximum. But what happens if there is a fluctuating one? Right? If suppose the prices keep on fluctuating through the day, right? Now we know Bikram and Chetan will be the weighted average of these cases, whereas Abdul is only interested in the original and the closing price, right? So then you will not be able to figure out the trend if the market keeps on rising and falling through the day. Abdul's is pretty easy to figure out, whereas for Bikram and Chetan, it depends on how much the market fluctuated and how much they invested at each part. So that is something which we will not know in case of a fluctuating or a alternating sort of a market. Whereas for rising, we know very clearly Abdul will be either the biggest winner or the biggest loser. Now, beyond this, there is nothing much we can do. There is not a lot of information. Let's go to the questions one by one and try to solve them. Okay, question number 1. On a day of fluctuating prices, the share price of XYZ ends with a gain higher than the closing price. Who will be the maximum return of the day? Now, we have already discussed, we cannot determine this. We need to know how much it fluctuated by. So, for example, suppose it rises, then it falls sharply, then it rises, then falls sharply, and then towards the end of the day rises. Now, both Bikram and Chandra's average price might be somewhere over here, whereas Abdul, even though he's going to make a profit, his profit might be a little lower compared to Bikram and Chandra. Whereas the other scenario can also happen. There can be a huge rise. Then most of the day, the market price stays up, and then finally it ends in a loss. So Bikram and Chandra's average prices will be somewhere at this level, whereas Abdul's average price will be here. So Bikram and Chandra might actually end up making a loss, right? So we cannot know for sure what is going to happen. Option E. Question number 2. Which of the following is always true? Abdul will not be one with the minimum return. Now, nothing can be said about this because we don't know the trend also. At least in the previous one, we at least knew it was a fluctuating price. Here we don't know anything about it. Return of Chetan will be higher than Bikram. We cannot say that. Return of Bikram is higher than Chetan. We cannot say that. Return of Chetan cannot be higher than that of Abdul. Not necessarily true. None of these will be the one which is the easiest to mark. Okay. Question number 3. On a boom day, the share price of XYZ keeps on rising through the day. Okay, this we have already discussed. So throughout the day, it keeps on rising, steadily increasing. Right? Which trader got the minimum return on that day? Now, we have already discussed Abdul got the maximum return, but these guys are very naughty and they are, not asking us who is the maximum return. Maximum would have been Abdul. That would have been easy. Right? It has to be either Bikram or Chetan. Right? Can we determine this? Now, if we do it for 2, we can extend it for 4 or 5 prices also. The trend is going to continue. Let's take a very simple example. Suppose the first interval, it's 100 rupees. The next interval, it's 120 rupees and you're selling it at 150 rupees. There's a selling price here. Okay. Now, what will be Bikram's strategy? Bikram is going to buy equal number of shares. So let's assume he buy 10 shares here, 10 shares here. He'll be selling 20 shares here. What will be his return? He's going to invest 1000 rupees here. He's going to invest 1200 rupees here and he's going to get 20 into 150, 3000 rupees. So his profit would be, this total investment is 2200. Profit is 800. So that's going to be his profit. So this 4 and 11 is Bikram's return. right? 4 and 11, 1 and 11 is 9%, 4, 11 will be 36.36%. Right, okay, let's look at Chetan. Chetan, he has to invest the same amount of money. So let's assume 100, 120, let's assume 600 rupees is investing. So 600 rupees invested, for 100 rupees per share, he's going to get 6 shares. For 120 rupees per share, he's going to get 5 shares. So total of 11 shares he has. He's going to sell that 11 shares at 150 rupees. So he's going to make 1650. His total cost is 600 here, 600 here. So 1200. Total cost is 1200. Profit will be 450. 450 on 1200. If you divide by 5, that will be 9 on 24. That is 3 in 8. 3 in 8 is 37.5%. Right. So Chetan makes more money than Bikram. So Bikram will be the lowest amount. Right. You can extend it to 3 places, 4 places, 5 places, 6 places. You will definitely get the same sort of scenario. Right. So first 3 questions were pretty straightforward. Now for 4 and 5, we have some additional data. Let's see what the data says. So 4 and 5 basically says on one day, 2 other traders, Dane and Emily, joined Abdul and Bikram and Chetan for trading in the shares XYZ Limited. Dane followed a strategy of buying equal number of shares at 10, 11, 12 and selling at 1, 2 and 3. Okay. On the other hand, Emily followed a strategy of buying shares using all the money at 10, selling all of them at 12 and again buying the shares at all of them at 1 and again selling them at 3. At the close of the day, the following was observed. So you need to find when was the share price the highest, whether the following is necessarily true. So you are now required to track the share price through the day. So you have 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. So Dane is basically going to buy equal amount of shares. So X amount of shares here, X amount of shares here, X amount of shares here. Then he's going to sell equal amount of shares here. He's going to sell the same amount here. Right. Whereas for Emily, you're buying at 10 o'clock, then selling all of it at 12. Buying again at 11, at 1, and selling all of them here. So whatever she buys, she's going to sell everything at 12. Then use that money again at 1 and buy whatever she can, and then going to sell again, and then you have some information. So let's track this down. So I have summarized this part. So share prices are P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6. That's Dane is buying at 3 and selling at individual awards. Emily is buying, selling, then buying again and selling. Let's see what this says. Abdul lost money in the transactions, which means the closing price was lower than the buying price, the starting price. So P1 is greater than P6. That is taken care of. Both Dane and Emily made profits. Dane made profit, Emily made profit. Now, Dane is buying equal amount of shares here and selling equal amount of shares here. So Dane's profit, Dane's sales would be X times P4 plus P5 plus P6. And his cost will be X times P1 plus P2 plus P3. Right, X is equal. So we know closing the sales are higher than the cost. So P4 plus P5 per P6 is greater than P1 plus P2 plus P3. That we know. For Emily to make profit, right? Emily to make profit, the transaction here and the transaction here should end up in profits. Okay, we'll come back to this later. There was an increase in the share price during the closing hour compared to the price at 2 p.m. So from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. there was a rise in price, right? So P6 is more than P5 also. P6 is more than P5. Okay. And the fourth one says share price at 12 was lower than the opening price. So P3 is lesser than P1. Okay. Now this makes the first part and the second statement interesting. Okay. Second statement, for Emily to now make a profit. Emily is going to make a loss here because she's buying at a higher price, selling at a lower price. then she has to recover that loss here. Right? Not only does she recover, she makes more so as to make an overall profit also. Which means that definitely this is going to be a profit, right? And it's going to be a much higher profit than what you're going to make here. So I know P6 is bigger than P4 for sure. Right? P6 is bigger than P4. Now let's see where you can make a profit. So we know P1 is more than P6. So this range is higher than this range. And we know P3 is lower than P1. Right? P3 is lower than P1. Can you say anything about P4? Will P4 be higher than P3 or lower than P3? Now, if P4 is higher than P3, first of all, suppose you get X amount of money here. Right, you get X amount of money here. You're going to get lesser number of shares here. Why? Because the price is higher. You're buying low, you're selling low and buying high. So you're actually making a loss. So you'll get a lesser number of shares here. On those lesser number of shares, the rise is also going to be smaller because P6 is lower than P1. So lesser number of shares compared to the previous one. Profit on each share is going to be lesser than the previous one. There is no way the profit is going to be higher. Overall profit is going to be higher than the loss subjected earlier. So because P6 is lesser than P1, we can be very sure that P4 has to be lesser than P3. Otherwise this transaction will not make money. Let's take a simple example. Suppose the opening price was 100. This price became 80. If this is 90, right? Suppose you bought 10 shares here, 1000 rupees, right? So you'll be selling 10 shares, you're getting 800 rupees only. Now, if it was 800 again, you're only going to get 10 shares, 900 you're going to make a loss. For this transaction to make a profit, you will have to, this price has to be lower so that you can recover enough money over here, so that you can recover money which you lost over here. Only possible is if P4 is bigger than P4 is lesser than P3. Right? This part is also taken care of. Now, if we combine this portion with what Dane has given us, P4, P6, P5, P6 is bigger than P1, P2, P3. P4, P5, P6 is bigger than P1, P2, P3. Now we know P1 is bigger than P6. P1 is bigger than P6. We also know P3 is bigger than P4. Right? So the only way the left hand side is bigger than the right hand side is if P5 is bigger than P2. Right? So P5 has to be bigger than P2. In fact, right? So that is the only way you're going to make money. Otherwise, Dane is not going to be able to make money over here. Okay, so let's go and look at the questions. We have gotten a relative idea. I have written this down roughly. Okay, so let's go to the question. The share price was highest at what time? Now we know P1 is the highest. P1 is definitely greater than P6. Right? P1 is definitely greater than P6. Right? P5 was lesser than P6, so it cannot be P5. P2 is also lesser. It cannot be this. Right? P4 is lesser than P6. That is here. And we know P1 to P3 there was a drop. So P1 was the highest price. What is P1? P1 is 10 AM. Option A is your correct choice. And the last one, which of the following is necessarily false? You have to be 100% sure that it is false. Share price is lowest at 2 PM. Share price is lowest at 2 PM. No, we know from 2 PM to 11 AM there's a rise. So this is first one is definitely false, but there is also more than one of the above. So let's check. Share price was lowest at 11 AM. This is possible. Not necessarily false. C, share price at 1 PM was higher than that at 2 PM. 1 PM was higher than 2 PM. May be true, may not be true. share price at 1 p.m. was higher than that at noon. This is definitely false. We have already proven it previously. We proved it here. It is definitely. So first statement is false. Fourth statement is false. Option E is your correct choice. It's a beautiful question. Especially the last two parts are really, really wonderful. The first three could be solved just by using the weighted average part. Then you had the additional information, which basically messed it up a little bit for us, made it a little complicated. Wonderful question, came up in CAT 2008. I think you should revise it before you take up any exam or any stock price sort of questions. A lot of students miss out on good B schools because they simply don't apply and they are ignorant. They don't do any research beyond the IIMs and they are more worried about their profile and academics, etc., rather than actually getting into a good B schools and making a career in the management field. If you would like personalized B school assistance, all you need to do is fill up the Google document. Link is available in the description of this video and we'll send you individual B school recommendations which fit your profile and your career aspirations. A study to look at the early learning of rural kids was carried out in a number of villages spanning 3 states. Okay, so there are 3 states: Northeast, West and South. They are abbreviated as NEWNS. 4-year-old kids were sampled from 150 villages of Northeast, 250 villages in West and 200 villages in South. So total villages sampled are 150 plus 250, 400 plus 200, 600. 600 villages. Each village has 50 students. So 600 into 50, 30,000 students were surveyed. It was found that out of the 30,000, which is there, surveyed kids, 55% studied in primary schools run by government, G, 37% in private schools, P, and remaining did not go to school, O is did not go to school, 8%. So 37 plus 8 is 45, 45 plus 55 is 100%. So this is the distribution. Okay, the kids, okay, so out of this 30,000, okay, there is one distribution which is based on which schools they are in presently. Out of the kids surveyed, they were further divided into 2 groups based on whether their mothers dropped out of the school before completing primary education or not. So there is a further division. One is on the basis of schools, which type of school they are, and the school is distributed by geography, South, Northeast and West. Okay. The second distribution is on the basis of whether the mothers dropped out or not. So dropped out, not dropped out. Okay, so there are 2 categories there also. So further division. The table below gives the number of kids in different types of schools for mothers who dropped out. So the table is for the people who dropped out. So this is this distribution for the people who dropped out. Okay, we know the total is 30,000 and we have some information from which we can make out a table for people whose mothers did not drop out, and when we add these two we'll get the total 30,000 number which is there. Okay, as you can see this is 18,000, so this total should be 12,000 who did not drop out. Total will be 30,000 overall when you add these two. So I have created a sort of a table over here where we can look at the figures. Okay, so this is 30,000 people. So total here will be, let me just go down a little bit. Okay, so total here will be 30,000. Okay, so this is 18, so this should be 12,000. Okay, now it also says 55% studied in government schools. This is of all the 30,000. 55% studied in government schools. 55% of 30,000. 50% will be 15,000. 5% will be 1/10 of 15, which is 1,500. So 55% will be 15 plus 1,500, which is 16,500. Okay. 8% did not go to school. 8% of 30,000 will be 2,400. Right, that's pretty easy to calculate. So balance will be here. Balance will be this plus this, 30,000 minus this. This will add up to 18,900. So 11, 100. 11,100 will be the total. Now this plus this adds up to this, so I can calculate this part. 16,500 minus 13,500, this will be 3,000. 11,100 minus 2,700. 11 minus 2 is 9. 9,100 minus 700 will be 8,400. This total will be 2,400 minus 1,800, so 600. You can verify this should be 12. 4 plus 6 will be 9,000. 9,000 plus 3,000 is 12,000. So this has been taken care of. Okay. In S, 60% of the surveyed kids were in G. 60% of the surveyed kids were in G, in South. So out of all the students in South, okay, 60% were there in G. Okay, so total of out of this 60% will be in G. Okay, and also known that all surveyed kids whose mothers had completed primary education were in school. Anyone whose mother had completed primary education were in school. So this total will be 0. Okay, so this will be 300. Again 300 plus 0, this will be 300. Okay, we also know how many villages are there, so we can multiply by 50 and get the total here. In Northeast, there are 50 villages in Northeast. 150 villages. 150 into 50 will be 7,500, right? So Northeast will be 7,500. 250 villages in West. 250 into 50 will be 12,500. And 200 into 50 will be 10,000. Okay, so this is the total here. Now out of this 10,000, 60% are in G. 60% will be 6,000 here, which means 6,000 minus 5,100. This number would be 5,700. Sorry, this number will be 6,000 minus 5,100. That will be 900. Okay, this total adds up to 10,000. 6,000 plus 300 will be 6,300. So this total should be 3,700. Okay, 3,700 minus 3,700 minus 300 will be 3,400. So this part is taken care of. Okay, I've used this also. Okay, I've used this fully. Okay, in Northeast, among the O kids, 50% had mothers who had dropped out before completing primary education. In Northeast, okay, among all the O kids, 50% had dropped out, which means the remaining 50% did not drop out. So if this is 300, this should also be 300. This is 50%, so this should also be 50%. So this should be 300. So this should be, total will be 600. Now I can add this and calculate. 300 plus 600 is 900. 24 minus 9 will be 1,500. 1,500 minus 1,200, this number should be 1,500 minus 1,200, this number should be 300. I can also find the totals here. 7,500 minus 5,000 will be 2,500. 12,500 minus 7, 3. 12 minus 7 is 5. 5 minus 3 is 2, so 5,200. And this will be 10 minus 5, 7, so 43, 4,300. Okay, this total should be 12,000. 25 plus 43, 68, 68, 70, 120. Yeah, this adds up. Okay, so this part is also done. Okay, number of kids in G in Northeast was same as the number of kids in W. G Northeast is same as G in W. So what it means is that these two numbers are equal. These two numbers are equal. So 16,500 minus 6,000 will be 10,500. Split evenly will be 5,250. So this should be 5,250. This should also be 5,250. Now I can add along the row and find this. I can subtract this from this and find this. I can subtract this from this and find this. So let's do this quickly. 5,250 minus 4,200 is 1,050. This should also be 1050 because the numbers are equal. Okay, this total should be 527. Okay, this total will be 7500. So this is 5250 plus 600 will be 5850. So 7500 minus 5850. This will be 50. This will be 1650. This similarly here. This is 5000 more, this is 900 more. So 5000 minus 900 will be 4100. So add 4100 here. So it will be 5750. And you can do this minus this will be this. So 1650 minus 500 will be 1150. And 5750 minus 1900 will be 57 minus 19 is 38. So 3850. Okay, so I have found all the numbers on this table. Okay, so let's see what we can do with this. Okay, let's go to the question. I have tabulated it in a neater fashion. Okay, what percentage of kids from S were studying in P? What percentage of kids from S were studying in P? Out of all the kids in S, all the kids in S, this is 10,000 kids. 3,700 were studying in P. 3,700 out of 10,000 will be 37%, option 1. Among the kids in W whose mothers had completed primary education. Mothers had completed primary education. So this is the number we are looking at. How many were not in school? How many were not in school? 300 were not in school. 300 were not in school, option 1. Right. Let's go to the next one. Now, as was the case in most of the other one, you had an additional information for two questions. Okay, so let's see what is the additional information. In a follow-up survey of the same kids 2 years later, so 2 years later, the same thing which is there, all the kids were now in school. All the kids were now in school. So these people are out. These people are out. Okay, they actually went to some schools. Okay, of the kids who were not in school earlier in one region, okay, 25% were now in G, where the rest were in P. In the second region, all kids were in G, while in the third region, 50% of the kids were now in G and the rest were in P. As a result, all three regions together, 50% of the kids who were earlier out of school had joined G. It was also seen that no surveyed kids had changed schools. Okay, so let's read this carefully. As a result of this change, everyone moved from O to G or P, and for each region there are some values given. In one region 25% moved to G, in the second region all kids moved to G, and in the third region 50% moved to G, 50% moved to P. Okay, now as a result of which all the people who are out of school, 50% went to G, 50% went to P. Okay, so this number will increase by 1200. This number will also increase by 1200. Okay, so now you need to find out which of the regions was 25%, which was the reason, which 100%, which was the reason with region with 50%. Okay, now this cannot be 100%. This cannot be 100% because if you put all the 1500 here, this number will not add up. So this cannot be 100%. Okay, now what can be this number? Okay, if this number is 100%, okay, this number will increase by 300. Okay, so these two will increase by 900. Okay, how will this increase by 900? If this was 25%, okay, 25% will be 150 and 50% will be 750. Okay, this adds up to 900. Okay, this works. So this trial and error works. So S, everyone moved from O to G. In West, 50% moved from O to G, and in Northeast, 25% moved from O to G. And because there is no cannot be determined in the first one, you can definitely say that this is the case. Okay, what number of surveyed kids were in G in W? G in W. It was initially 5250. Add 50% of 1500, which is 750. 5250 plus 750 will be 6000. Option 1. Okay. Question number 4. We need to be careful. There is a cannot be determined here. So let's see what the question says. What percentage of the surveyed kids in S? Surveyed kids in S. Okay. Whose mothers had dropped out before completing primary education. So this one. Okay. We're now in G. Okay. So how many of them were in G? Now, ideally, I mean, we don't know the distribution. See, we know the overall distribution. We don't know from whether mothers had dropped out or mother had not dropped out. So first look, this looks like it cannot be determined as an answer. But if you observe carefully, when you look at this 300, we know all these 300 moved to this S. Okay, and you look at it, there is a 0 here. There's a 0 here, which means all this 300 is this 300. And we know all this 300 is here. All the 300 is here. Okay, so we know now it is 5400 without doubt, because there is nobody here to move, right? In this case, when you have 750, okay, we don't know, this can be 50 and this can be the balance 700, or this can be 100, this can be 650, or this can be 200 and this can be 550. But with S region, okay, there is nobody in the others where the mothers have completed primary education. Okay, so all the 300 movement will have to come from this part only. So from 5100, it has now become 5400. Now, what is the question? What percentage of the kids in S whose mothers had dropped out were in G now? Okay, so out of the 5700, 5400 are in G. So in percentage terms, it is 54 by 57, that is 18 by 19, right? Okay, so 1 by 20 is approximately 5%. So this is very close to 19 by 20. 19 by 20 is approximately 95%. So the number will be slightly lesser than 95%. We can verify with a calculator if you want to. 18 divided by 19. That's 94.7. 94.7. Option 1 is your correct choice. Okay, so that finishes our set. This we had to initially work a little hard to fill up this numbers, but once we made this table, the questions were reasonably easy to solve.
If you get stuck anywhere with respect to preparing for LRDI, there are some free resources which are available on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist on how to prepare for LRDI. It includes which are the topics which you need to focus on, how much do you need to spend on each area. Also, we tell you how to go about picking sets in the examination, right? So if you are not able to pick even a single set, this is a good framework to start with and build on for your CAT LRDI preparation. If you want any further assistance in terms of speaking with us, getting personal guidance, doing more practice, following a more structured path to LRDI preparation, please do look at our Ultimate LRDI course. This is a pretty sizable set in terms of the amount of data, but actually it's not very difficult, and it is an index based set which is very, very common in most calculation based questions. These type of questions have come up in IFT, ZAT as well as CAT. So it's a pretty popular sort of a set. This is perhaps the set which started it, might be some even before that. Let's see what this says. The following is a wholesale price index, WPI, of select list of items with base year 93, 94. In other words, all items are made 100 in that particular year, right? Prices of all the other items are measured with respect to the price in the base year. So to give you an example, suppose there's an item X and say 2010 is your base year. In 2010, say the price was 200 rupees, and in 2020, the price is 250 rupees. So instead of doing it as instead of doing it as 200, right, they will index it to 100. Now, what is the rise here? Rise is 50 over 200, which is 25%. So the index value will be 125 in 2020 for this, right? So again, for all these items, you have indexed it. Everything is measured with respect to 1993, 94. There's an example given. For instance, the price of cement went up by 1% in cement went up by 1% in 94-95 as compared to 93-94. Similarly, price of power went up by 3% in 96-97. It became 103 when compared to 93-94. And if you quickly look at the question, each of them has additional information except for the last two, and last two are the easiest to solve. See, first one says, let us suppose that you have additional information. Again, you have additional information. Steel measuring plant requires the use of iron ore, blah, blah, blah. During the part, this is acute. So again, additional information is used to solve this question. But for 3 and 4, you have to just directly check which item experienced continuous price rise and which item experienced only one decline. So all you have to do is look at the trends over here and solve them. So we will solve 3 and 4 first and then go to 1 and 2 because that requires additional information. All right. Third one says, which item experienced continuous price rise through the 10-year period? It's very difficult to observe it as it is. So let's look at from the options. Let's look at power. Power is a rise, 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 rise. Okay, we got lucky. Option 1. Right. Okay. Question number 2. Question number 4. Which item or items experienced only one decline in price during the 10-year period? They should decline only once through the 10-year period. So if you look at it, timber comes in 3 options, steel comes in 2 options, limestone comes in 1, wages comes in 1. So let's first look at timber. Okay, let's look at timber. There should be only one decline, right? There should be only one decline. Okay, rise, 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 rise. There's a decline. That is one decline. Rise, 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 rise. Okay, so timber is one such part. So this is out. Does not help me because I have to still match these two. Okay, let's try steel. Steel is a rise, one decline. That's 1. Rise, 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 rise. Oh, decline here. Steel has 2 declines. So this is out. Okay, I need to check wages also. Okay, rise, 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 rise. This is 1 decline. Rise, rise, rise. Okay, wages also matches. So 2 of them. So we got lucky in first one, but in the second one we actually had to go through the entire set to do it. Okay, so the 2 easy ones are done. Let's go to the trickier ones or the additional information ones and see what comes out of it. Question number 1 says, suppose 1 bag of cement, 50 kilos, consumes 100 kilos of limestone, 10 units of power. Okay, we don't have cost per unit here. Let's see. The only other cost in producing cement is in form of wages. So cement's cost is limestone, power, and wages. These are the only 2. During 93-94, limestone, power and wages contributed 20, 25% and 15% to the cement price per bag. So if the cement price was 1000, 20% will be because of limestone. So 200 rupees is because of limestone. 25%, which means 250 is because of power, and 15%, which means 150 is because of wages. That's 400. So 600 is your cost, which means 400 is your profit. Or profit is 40%. Okay, but that's not your question. The question asks the average operating profit of a price of cement earned in 2002-2003. What will be the price here? What will be the profit percentage here? If this is the trend, what is the profit percentage here? Now, cement we were able to sell at 1000 rupees, right? But now because it has increased to 104, so we'll be able to sell it at 1040, 40%, 4% rise. Right. Now we need to look at the costs also, how much the costs have risen. Limestone 100 to 105. So 200 will become double of this. So 210. Limestone cost will be 210. Power from 100 it has become 108. So 250 will become 2.5 times this. Double of this is 216. Half of this is 54. So this is 270. Okay, power is 270. Wages from 100 it has become 105.3, 150. So 1.5 times. So that will be 105.3 plus half of this. That will be 52.65. That's 158, almost 158. What is the total cost? That will be 28, 38, 638, right? How much is the profit? Profit is 402 on 1040. That's your profit percentage. Right, that's your profit percentage. We cannot use a calculator. So this is slightly less than 40%. One of these two will there. Okay, 10% is 104. 40% will be 416. 1% will be 10.4. So 39% value will be 406 point something, 406 roughly. This value is less than 406. Right, so it has to be less than 39. Option 3 will be our correct choice. That will be roughly our correct choice. And question number 2 is very similar to question number 1. Okay, it says steel manufacturing requires use of iron ore, power and manpower. So you have iron ore, power and manpower. This is steel. Okay, now iron ore is not given. Iron ore is not given. Okay, the cost of iron ore follows the all items index. Okay, so basically it's an all items index. Okay, so that is given over here. During 93-94, power accounted for 30%. So again, if this is 1000, 30% of power will be 30%. Iron ore 25%, so 250, and wages 10%, so 100. Right, assuming cost price and price of cement as given in the previous question, the operating profit for steel is more than, less than, same as cement. Okay, so we need to calculate for steel and compare it with 38.5%. Okay, let's try to do that. Now iron ore goes as all items price, so 100 became 106, so 250 will become 2.5 times this. So double of this will be 212, half of this will be 53, so 265. This will become 265. Okay, power 3 times this. 3 times this will be 324. And manpower, wages, sorry, this is wages, right? Wages is 105.3, it stays here. Okay, what does steel become? From 1000 it will become 1055. That's your selling price. Okay, what is your cost? 105, 330, 424, 624, 689, almost 695. Right, 90, yeah, 695, roughly about 695. So your profit is 360. Your profit is about 360. 360 on 1000, that's less than 36%, whereas here it is 38.5%. So the profit on steel is lesser than that of cement. Option 2 will be our correct choice. It's a very nice question. We have tried to solve it in the spirit of the question because there was no calculator in 2003. Without a calculator also, it's not very difficult to calculate these values. You need your basic quick calculation part. In fact, with a calculator, it'll probably take you longer because you have to enter those values, keep on writing into a scratch pad, etc. Without a calculator, it's probably faster. Question 1 and 2 were longer to do. Questions 3 and 4 should be attempted first. In an exam situation, you should definitely attempt this question. Have a right expectation, about 8 to 10 minutes, a moderate sort of a question, a must-do question in an exam situation. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notifications button so that you are notified when we are releasing our next set of videos. Please do like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to connect with us, you can connect with us through WhatsApp and Telegram as well. All the relevant links are available in the description of this particular video. Okay, this is a set which has a decent amount of data, right? It says Rahul is preparing for the CAT examination. As a part of the last mile preparation, he enrolls for 3 mock test providers, Samay, PL, SMS. Each provider has given him 10 mock CATs to be taken over 10 weeks. Rahul was analyzing his performance in this test. However, due to a glitch in the software, the last digit of his scores was erased. He could salvage the following information regarding his mock test scores. W1, W2, etc. represents week 1, week 2, and so on. So in week 1, in Samay, he scored, okay, so the last digit is erased. So this score could be 100, it could be 101, it could be 102, it can be from anywhere from 100 to 109. That can be his score. Similarly, in PL, he could score from 130 to 139. In SMS, he can score from 160 to 169, and same with all the others as well. So this could be from 90 to 99, 130 to 139. But this score cannot be 140, right? Or 128. Cannot be any of those scores. It has to be from 130 to 139. So this is what is given to us across the different weeks. Okay. Further, it is also known that Rahul completes all the tests in a particular week before moving to tests for the next week. So he'll complete week 1's tests, Samay, PL, SMS. Then he'll go to week 2. Then he'll go to week 3, week 4, and so on. It is also given in a given week, Rahul always takes the test provided by Samay before the test provided by PL. Then he takes the test provided by PL before test provided by SMS. So the order is going to be this. So he'll first take this test. This will be the second test. This will be the third test. Then this will be the fourth test, fifth test, sixth test, seventh test, eighth test, ninth test, and so on. So this is the order in which he is proceeding. And the last one says the scores obtained by Rahul in any mock test is a positive integer. Okay. Right, so that is what we have. If you look at the questions, first one says weekly average is defined as the average scores of Rahul across the 3 tests. So we'll have to average out all the weeks. Okay. Second one says how many of the following scores can represent the average of the weekly averages as defined in the previous question. Okay, again you'll have to use the averages. Third one says a streak is defined as a number of tests where score increase when compared to the previous one. Okay, this does not require calculation. And fourth says Rahul is said to have a balanced score when the score obtained is equal to the average of the test scores in the test immediately preceding and immediately succeeding that test. Okay, so this also does not require a lot of calculation. So we can first try 3 and 4, and then because you have to calculate averages, we can try first and second. So let's start with third and fourth and then go to questions 1 and 2. Okay, so I have summarized this information. Question number 3 says a streak is defined as a number of tests where the scores increase from one test to the next when the scores are arranged in the order of taking the test. Okay, what could be the longest streak obtained by Rahul? So the score should continuously increase, definitely increase, right? Not definitely, but could have continuously increased. when looked at one test to the other. Now we know the order is like this. You will first finish week 1, then finish week 2, then finish week 3, then finish week 4, then finish week 5, then finish week 6, then finish week 7, and so on. So you need to look at a streak over here, right? And we know first is Samay, then PL, then SMS, then Samay, then PL, SMS. Okay, let's see what the streak can be. Now 10, this can be 100 to 109. This could be from 130 to 139. So definitely there can be an increase and there can be an increase. But from a score which is from 160 to 169 to a score which is 120 to 129, there cannot be an increase. So the streak stops here. So this streak is length 3, 10, 13, 16. Okay, let's look at this. From 12 to 9, okay, it's actually a drop. So there cannot be any streak here. Let's check the next streak. From 9 to 13, there can be an increase. From 13 to 13, there can be an increase. For example, this score can be 131, this score can be 134. So there can technically be, theoretically be an increase. So again, you can have a streak of 3. It will stop at 3 because after 13 is 9. So there's a definite drop. So it stops here. From 13 to 8, again there's a drop, cannot be a streak. Okay, let's try the next one. From 8 to 8, there can be a streak. 8 to 10, there can be a streak. 10 to 13, there can be a streak. 13 to 15, there can be a streak. But 15 to 9 cannot be a streak. Okay, so this streak is pretty lengthy. If you look at this, if you take these 5 tests, okay, let me just erase this. If you take these 5 tests, it can represent a streak, and a pretty decent streak. This could be 81, this could be 85, so it can be an increase. This is definitely an increase, this is definitely an increase, this is definitely an increase. So this streak can be 5. So instead of a streak of 3, you can increase it to a streak of 5. Now let's see if we can improve on this. 15 to 9 is a drop. Okay. 9 to 14 increase, 14 to 15 it's an increase, but 15 to 13 it's a definite drop. So this is out. Okay, 15 to 13 is a drop, 13 to 10 is a drop. Okay, now let's try this. 10 to 12 is an increase, 12 to 13 is an increase, 13 to 15 is an increase, but 15 to 14 is not an increase. So this streak is a streak of only 4. But we already have a 5, so we don't need to worry about it. Okay, now let's try this. 15 to 14 is a drop, 14 to 11 is a drop, 11 to 9 is a drop. Okay, 9 to 12, 12 to 10, okay, again a drop. So this is only a streak of 2. 10 to 9 it's a drop, 9 to 11 is an increase, 11 to 11 is an increase, but 11 to 10 is a drop. Okay, so the maximum streak is 5. This is more of an observation question. This should not take you as much time as I've given you because I've explained it in more detail. But in an actual exam situation, this should take you about minute and a half max. Okay, let's try question number 4. Question number 4 says Rahul is said to have achieved a balanced score when the score obtained by him in a particular test is equal to the average of the scores in the test immediately preceding and immediately succeeding that particular test. How many times did he get a balanced score in week 3 to 7? Okay. Okay, so from week 3 to 7. Okay. So you figure out whether he could have achieved a balanced score. Okay, so for example, this 13, can it be average of these two tests? Can it be an average of the test before it and the test after it? You scored between 130 to 139. Can this be an average of 130 to 139 and 90 to 99? Can this be an average of this? Now let me illustrate this and we can use this very quickly for the others as well. Okay, so the minimum average would be these two, right? 130 plus 90 will be 220 divided by 2 will be 110, or if I were to just use the first digit, it will be around 11. All right, and if you take the very last part, 139 plus 99, 139 plus 99 will be 238, right? Divided by 2 will be 119, so 11.9. So the average we can quickly calculate will be the highest value here, lowest value and lowest value, right? Average of the lowest values, or average of the lowest value plus 0.9. Why? Because this can increase by 9, this can increase by 9, the average can increase by 9 plus 9 divided by 2, which is 9. But that 9 comes to, when you divide it by 10, because you're losing the last digit, it will come as 0.9. Right? So once you do this, you can quickly estimate the average. So this is 11 to 11.9. Now 11 to 11.9 cannot be approximated as 13. So this is out. 8 and 13. Can the average come to 9? 8 and 13 is 10.5. So the minimum average itself is 10.5. Cannot be 9, right? 9 and 8. Can it come out to somewhere in the 8 range? 9 plus 8 is 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. It can be in this range. So this is one case. Okay. Now let's try the next one. 8 and 10. Can it result in an average of 8? No. 18. Minimum itself is 9. So out. Okay. 8 and 13. Can it result in an average of 10 to 11? Possible. 8 to 13 is 21. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. Possible. This is there. 10 and 15. Can it result in an average of 13? Yes. 25 divided by 2 is 12.5. 12.5 plus 0.9 will be 13.4, which comes in this range. So possible. 13 and 15 cannot, 13 and 9 cannot result in 15. So this is out. 14 and 15 cannot result in 9. This is out. 9 and 15, can it result in 14? 9 plus 15 is 24. 24 by 2 is 12. Maximum will be 12.9. So no, not possible. 14 and 13, can it result in 15? No. 15 and 10, can it result in 13? Yes. 25 divided by 2 is 12.5. Again, the same scenario, right? So this is possible. 13 and 12, can it result in a 10? No. 10 and 13, can it result in a 12? 10 plus 13 is 23. 23 divided by 2 is 11.5. The range will be from 11.5 to plus 0.9. That's 12.4. Possible. Right. 12 and 15. Can it result in 13? 12 and 15 is 27. Divided by 2 is 12.5. Again, add a 0.9. 13.4 possible. This is also possible. Right. 13 and 14. Can it result in 15? No. So between week 3 and week 7, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this was not the case, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times it is there. Again, I am illustrating it. It takes longer in an exam situation. It probably should take you about 2 minutes to solve this one. Now, question 1 and 2 basically requires you to find the average. Now to find the average, we will need to find the sum, right? So let me just quickly find the sum here. Okay, I will just use the 3 digits. We will add the last digit. We'll just use the 2 digits. We'll add the third digit later on. For example, 8 plus 10 plus 13 is 23 plus 8, 31. So 15 plus 9 plus 14, that's 24 plus 14, 38. So I can write this down completely. So let me just quickly summarize this. So I'll reach this stage, right? This will probably take you about a minute from where we were to reach. Okay, now how to find the, let me find the total first. Okay, so this can be 10, this can be 130. The minimum will be 10, 13, 16. So it can be from 100 to 109, 130 to 139, 160 to 169. So the minimum total will be 100 plus 130 plus 160. That's 390. That will be the minimum. What will be the maximum? The maximum value will be, if this becomes 109, this becomes 139, this becomes 169. So add 9, add 9, add 9. So add 27 to this. 390 plus 27 will be 417. Similarly, this total will be 340. Add 27, so 367. This will be 300. Add 27, that will be the maximum, 327. This will be 310. Add 27, this will be 337. Add 10, this will be 380. Add 27, 407. And so on we can do it. So I've quickly done this. Right, now let's see, I have the totals now, so averages should not be very difficult, but let's see what this says. First one says the weekly average is defined as the average score of Rahul across the 3 tests attempted in the given week. Okay, so for example, in week 1, his average will be 390 divided by 3, between 130 to 417 divided by 3. 417 divided by 3 will be 133. Sorry, 139, right? It's going to be between 130 and 139. Again, this will be divided by 3. This will be divided. We can keep on doing it. Okay. Question says, which of the following weeks is it impossible for Rahul to achieve the lowest weekly average? Impossible for Rahul to attain the lowest weekly average. Okay. Now, you need to be 100% sure that that week cannot be the lowest. Now, to give you an example, let's see how to do it. In week 1, his minimum possible score is 390 if you add the 3, right? So if your total is the lowest, your average will also be the lowest. Similarly, if your total is higher, your average is also going to be higher, because everything is going to be divided by 3. Now, if you take this, can week 1 ever be lesser than week 2? It's not going to be possible, right? Because the highest possible in week 2 is 367. The highest value of week 2 is lower than the lowest possible of week 1. So irrespective of what the actual scores are, week 1 will always be bigger than week 2. So you know for sure that week 1 cannot be lower than week 2, which means week 1 cannot be the lowest across the scores as well. Anyways, week 1 is not in the options anyways, but just to illustrate this point. So you need to check between week 2, week 3, week 4 and week 10. Right. So let's check week 2 and week 3. If you check week 2 and week 3, can week 2 ever be higher than ever be lower than week 3? It's not possible, right? The lowest possible for week 2 is higher than the highest possible of week 3. So week 2 can never be the lowest among the given one. But can week 3 be the lowest? Between week 3 and week 4. If you look at week 3 and week 4, there's an overlap. Week 3 is 300 to 327. Week 4 is 337, 310 to 337. Now, it can be that week 3 is 300 and week 4 is somewhere here. But it is also possible that week 3 is 327, week 3 is 327 and week 4 is 328. It is also possible because the score is in this range. So because there's an overlap, you cannot be sure that week 3 is lower than week 4 or week 4 is lower than week 3. But we know that week 2 is definitely going to be higher than week 3 and therefore cannot be the lowest overall. So again, does not require much work after this particular part. Okay, it's the understanding which is more important. Okay, and once you have created the table here like this, neatly written it down, second one should not be very difficult. How many of the following scores can represent the average of the weekly averages as defined in the question? Average of the weekly averages across the question. So basically this is the total. So I need to check multiplied by 3, everything multiplied by 3. Can the overall average, if I take the average of all this, can it be 345? This will be 351. This will be 366. Can it be 378? Can it be 384? 390? Can it be in any of these ranges? So let's quickly calculate the overall average. Let's see how much it is. So if you take a rough estimate of 350 as the overall average, right, almost everything is there. So let's try that. So total will be 350 into 10, 3500. Now let's see what the deviations are. This is plus 40. Over 350, this is plus 40. This is minus 10. This is minus 50. This is minus 40. This is plus 30, plus 30, this is plus 50, this is minus 10, this is minus 40, this is minus 30. Now this has to be done in your head. I'm just writing it down to illustrate what I'm doing, right? Minus 40 minus 10 will be plus 30. 40 minus 10 is 30. 30 minus 50 is minus 20. Minus 20 minus 40 is minus 60. Minus 60 plus 30 is minus 30. Minus 30 plus 30 is 0. 0 plus 50 is 50. 50 minus 10 is 40. 40 minus 40 is 0. And 0 minus 30 is minus 30. So 3470 is the total across 10 tests. Divided by 10 will be 347. So on the lower side, your overall score will be 347. On the higher side, the sum will be 347 plus 27, 374. So your final numbers should be between this range, 347 and 374, both inclusive. 347 and 374, both inclusive. 345 is not in there. 351 is there, 366 is there, 378, 384 and 390 are not there. So 2 of the 6 scores can be the overall average of the averages. This is a pretty brilliant set in the sense like it looks like initially there's going to be a lot of calculation. There is some calculation. For example, we had to calculate the overall averages. But the first part, there are 2-3 questions which you can solve very quickly without doing a lot of calculations. You need to identify that. And then once you do the calculation also, you should be able to reuse the calculation and do it quickly as possible. Right? In an exam situation, it should take you between 10 to 12 minutes, maybe 13 minutes.
That completes this session on must-do sets for CAT LRDI preparation. Please do let us know in the comments below how you liked this. Please do share this with your friends who are preparing for CAT and other MBA entrance examinations. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, or you can connect with us on WhatsApp and Telegram groups. The links are all available in the description of this particular video. If you are facing any problem with CAT LRDI sets, you can look at our YouTube channel playlist on how to prepare for CAT LRDI. If you want any specialized, personalized attention on LRDI preparation in the most structured manner, you can also look at our Ultimate LRDI course. This is the most comprehensive course which is available in the market. Till we meet again the next time, goodbye and all the best.